Russia on irreversible path to clash with West, France says.
Here's a summary of the article.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine put it on an irreversible path toward a clash with the collective West, France has warned. The rupture introduced by the war and the irreversibility of Russian strategic choices make it necessary to anticipate a confrontation with Moscow, the French Secretariat General for National Defense and Security said in a strategic review published on Wednesday. The Ukraine war had shown the risk of high-intensity warfare between states had returned to Europe, Macron said at a military base in Toulon, France. The French president is the only NATO leader who regularly speaks by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin in search of a peace deal. The French president also formally announced the end of the largest French military operation in Africa on Wednesday, under Russian pressure. The anti-jihadist Operation Barkhane in Mali, which had 5,500 French soldiers in its heyday, was being wound down in favor of a constellation of smaller forces in neighboring countries in future, Macron said in Toulon, while standing on a French warship. Barkhane's principal host turned against France and the West following a putsch in 2021 and signed a contract with Russian mercenary group Wagner to fight rebels instead. Wagner's presence in Africa caused predation of economic resources, human rights atrocities, and political instability, the French review said.
This post received a score of 20,000, with an upvote ratio of 93%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Hard to clash with the West if you can't move your troops past the Dnipro River.
They didn't even get into Kharkiv, a Russian-speaking city on the border. Russia is more likely to implode than to successfully pick a fight with the West.
Exactly, they're no longer in a position to project power. All they can do is make noise and hope someone will believe it.
I can just imagine the internal strife that will come from this in the next months and years. The best thing is to fortify the border and stay the hell out of that place.
That's my take, too. Encourage the place to break into multiple states and let them eat themselves. I've heard balkanization is a very peaceful process, especially when there's 6,000 nukes involved.
I do worry about the casual blast. Comments about nukes. Russia has 6,000 at the last count. Even if only 10% of these are working, that is still 600 nukes, enough to kill millions of people. Add in the 600 that NATO fire in retaliation and that is enough to cause a devastating effect on the planet.
It's a death wish. Russia is having a hard enough time with Ukraine. How will they fare against the combined might of NATO?
Not good.
Yup, these guys thought, hey, we've been doing well against African fighters and Syrian fighters, we must be tough. Difference between mercenary band of fighters and a trained professional army with central command.
And air support vs. none.
We've got shit everywhere from under the oceans to up in orbit, all there to help our guys on the ground with the best possible requirement and logistics be the best possible self-determined trigger pullers. Meanwhile their troops fight alone, one order at a time, with rusty trash that their great-grandfathers once held. How well will it go? Our biggest problem will be the PTSD of soldiers who regularly kill 10+ guys a day for a few years. Killing that many Russians can't be good for ya.
It's probably better for you than the killing that's been going on for the last 20 years. Like, you'll feel bad about it at some level, but you aren't going to lie awake at night questioning whether you were fighting some war for oil or something. It's like how there were 18-year-olds in the Moskva. It's a shame, but the ship was shooting missiles at civilians. It had to be sunk.
Reading between the lines, it seems that Macron is more trying to convince the rest of the EU to ramp up military power so that the EU does not rely too much on the US, much rather than he actually expects an escalation with Russia into direct war.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.